Hey guys, I just wanted to let everyone quickly know that I have a Valorant Fundamentals competitive course on my Patreon, top link in the description below. Basically, it covers everything that you're going to want to know in order to improve from wherever it is that you're stuck right now, or whatever it is that whatever rank you are currently in. And so you can find that in the top link of the description. Enjoy the video and peace, guys. Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be teaching you everything you need to know about game sense to further your abilities in Valorant, right? So this video is going to talk about what is game sense and why is it important. It's going to give you some examples about kind of what is game sense to kind of clarify that, because I know some people have different kind of mixed conceptions about game sense. So I'm going to explain what I know about game sense and how to improve it. And then the last thing I'm going to explain is how you can improve it starting now. And so let's go ahead and get right into it. So what is game sense and why is it important, right? So game sense, you guys probably heard this term a bunch, and some of you probably have different conceptions than, other people, and that's completely fine. But in my head, game sense is your ability to understand and adapt to how the enemy team and your team are playing, right? So not just the enemy team, but also your team, okay? Game sense is basically knowing what to do in certain scenarios. If you don't know what to do in certain scenarios, your game sense is weak. If you know exactly what the best play or what your best options are in any given scenario, then your game sense is strong and you have a good game sense, right? It's kind of like your sense for Valorant, right? It's your game sense. That's kind of why it's called that. So your team and the enemy team are always variable to some degree, and that is basically why game sense exists, because if you always played with the same team, I mean, there's still game sense, but pro players, for example, don't have to have the same type of game sense that comp players have to have, because your teammates and your enemy team, the enemy team is always varying, right? It's always different. So knowing that, right, this is why understanding the best course of action is different in different scenarios is so important, right? So this is why basically you need game sense, and this is why it's so important. So now let's give you some examples, okay? So what are some examples of high skill game sense? So basically, like, pro game sense, insane game sense, stuff where you think people are like, reading other people's minds, stuff like that. So let's give you an example. So one is you quickly realize that your team is not good at attacking or pushing, so you ask your team to slow it down and play default. For example, right, say we're on ascent here and our team has, this is round, let's say round 3, we've pushed B really fast, we all died very quickly, we didn't even get to site, we didn't plant the spike. The next round we went to A, and the same thing happened, and then we did B again. So we pushed 3 rounds in a row and our team's not successful at attacking. Basically, someone with high game sense would more quickly realize that pushing with this team is not good. Someone with a high game sense would quickly ask, guys, let's slow it down and try to kind of default, let's kind of just look for kills, right? You can word this however you want to your team, but someone with high game sense would realize that. Someone with not as good of game sense would keep trying to push in and keep trying to do what has not already worked, basically, right? And this is what differentiates people that have a higher game sense or a more, well-rounded game sense to someone that does not, okay? So another example of high skill game sense would be knowing when and why you or your team should rotate positions. This is kind of similar, right? Let's say that we are at A, we're attacking A, the round just started, and sage walls, right? Sage walls right here. This is actually kind of common, right? If there's a sage, there's a good chance that this is going to be walled off or B main's going to be walled off. And what do you do in this scenario? There's a couple of things you might do. One is shoot the wall and try to push through it. Or another one is just instantly leave without shooting it, okay? So someone with more game sense would be like, let's shoot the wall and leave. They wouldn't even hesitate, right? You would say shoot the wall and most likely we should leave, because you guys shooting the wall is basically just stalling. It's the enemy team stalling you for the enemy team to, more players than the enemy team to rotate toward A, right? So if there's just a sage and one other player and they wall this, the time that you spend shooting the wall is time that the enemies get to rotate. Right? If your team's not all on the same page to shoot the wall, which they're probably not in your rank or anyone's rank, to be honest, except for like, very high rank, the best play here is to shoot the wall and run. You want to shoot the wall and break it because that makes them think, oh, they're A, but in reality, you're already a step ahead kind of leaving. So that's what someone with a high game sense would do, and just kind of instantly rotate, right? But the sage wall is kind of irrelevant. Whenever there are 3 people on a site, and this is, you can realize this by kind of like footsteps, how many people are shooting at once, how many different agent specific abilities are at one site at a given time. And if the answer is 3 or more, it's time to rotate, right? There's no world where pushing into 3 or more people is good. And this is where someone with a higher game sense would quickly realize, okay, this is just not a good place to go. We have time. Why not just leave? The round just started. Let's just go B. Let's go mid. Let's go up cat. Let's do anything but push into A as a team. It's just not smart. power, right? So rotating, you know, that's another example of what someone with high game sense would kind of know when to do. And the last example that I'm going to give you guys here is basically someone with high game sense would be picking up on any patterns in an enemy's style of playing and using this to your advantage, right? So I'll go ahead and give an example specifically of what I mean by this, but this is also what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this video. So an example of this is realizing that an enemy killjoy ults the same place or site always whenever attacking. So you really want to let your team know, and so you can actually take advantage of this information, right? So let's say that our team is now defending, and the enemy killjoy decides to ult A main, right? A main for some reason. She ults A main every single round. She's ulted it once, so the second time that she ults it, you're like, okay, guys, killjoy ulted A. Last time she has her second ult now, she's probably gonna killjoy A again, right? This is just kind of like, you know, you're just kind of thinking, you're making a prediction, right? You're constantly making predictions in this game, but if she ults twice in the same half and then she has a third ult, it's a pretty good bet that she's going to ult it a third time, right? And so this is just one example of this. You know, we could talk about, like, where does a team go whenever they have raise ult, or, you know, something like that, or just anything, right? Any patterns you can pick up within the enemy's playstyle is going to be very important. So, for example, say we're attacking again, and we realize that, okay, we can't really push, but the enemies also are very aggressive if there's noise made on one area of the map. So you could be like, okay, make noise A and we'll kill someone that pushes up B, right? This is a pattern right here. Someone pushing up B or someone pushing up somewhere consistently is a pattern of behavior that you can take advantage of. If you know that someone pushes here whenever there's presence on the other side of the map and you don't take advantage of it, then you're missing out on an absolutely free kill, right? So this is where game sense can really net you some free kills, really net you some rounds even, and just games, right? So lastly, we're going to be talking about ways that you can improve your game sense starting right now, guys. Okay, so I'm going to give you some very useful tips here. So number one is play more, and not only just play more, but also play more with the intention of picking up on these patterns within your team and within the enemy team. I would say probably both are just about as important, because again, if you can pick up on your team's weaknesses, or, you know, your team's patterns or behaviors that are weak, that are going to make you guys overall a weaker team, you can really try to fortify those weaknesses earlier in the half, right? Or earlier in the game. And that's going to give you a much better chance to win. But also, if you can pick up patterns of behavior and like how the enemies play, or where certain agents play on the enemy team, how do they rotate, how quickly do they rotate, do they push up and flank? If you realize these things, if you're not looking for these things, you want to start looking for them. That's my advice to you. Start looking for them, and you're going to really notice more opportunities. So playing more will also inevitably improve your game sense, but how quickly it improves depends on what you are looking for. So again, if you just play with no intention of looking for patterns, you're still going to improve your game sense subconsciously just from playing. You know, if you shoot 1,000 basketballs, you're going to be better at the 1,001th shot than you were at the very beginning. It's the same thing in Valorant, but if you also are shooting baskets and, you know, you're practicing like form and stuff like that, that's basically what looking for patterns kind of is, right? So try to do that. Another tip is, after you notice patterns, experiment with how you can use the knowledge to your and your team's advantage, okay? So again, if you know that they're pushing up, you really want to let your team know that, right? You don't want to just, if you realize that and you just kind of ignore it, like that's a free kill, right? You know, if I know someone's pushing up here, I'd be like, guys, can we just wait for the person B main to push? I'll just get a free kill here. And I would just sit like right here. Maybe I would sit like right here, you know, and let them push into me. I'm not going to just ignore that. And also, I would also let my team know, because I want to maximize my chances to take advantage of this pattern or of this behavior that I have kind of become aware of, right? That I've now realized. And so the third and final tip that I want to emphasize, again, this is something I just said, but use comms to make your team aware of the enemy team's habits or patterns, or of your own team's patterns or habits. So you can, it's kind of funny, you can make your team aware of your own team's weaknesses, right? So like, oh guys, we suck at pushing, so we should not push straight away, right? We should wait for a kill. We should see if they give us a pick. Let's find their weaknesses as a defensive team, and let's just, you know, right? So, you know, again, the bottom line here is just making your team aware of kind of what's happening and why things are going the way they are, or any patterns that you realize that you think could be really valuable if your team capitalized off of them, right? So again, this is going to be the game sense guide. Hopefully you guys found this useful. If you guys have any questions about what game sense is or how you can improve it further, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be glad to help you out. See you guys in the next video.